We are in studio with our good friend Patrick Tuohey from the Show Me Institute. Welcome in, my man. How are you?
It's great. It's great to be here. It's great to see you in person. I saw you in New York on other people's shows, and I get nervous that you're going to leave the market, that you're getting wooed back to the East Coast.
No.
We've got a good thing in Kansas City. I don't want to lose you, so I'm glad you're here.
It's all good. Nick Haynes reached out to me asking me to do a show. He said, I know you did Harris Faulkner last week. I know I'm not as pretty as her and the whole thing. I said, Nick, Harris's show was just a warm-up to hopefully get invited back on your show.
Oh,
that's
very
all
good.
it was. So I appreciate that. By the way, I've been talking a lot this morning about the American Public Square event I did last night on DEI. I got civility belled. So you've done these before with American Public Square, and you have never been civility belled.
I've done 3 of them, and I've never been belled.
Shame on you. You're not doing it right unless you get civility belled. I am 2 for 2 getting civility belled at these things, man. What's going on?
Well, you're just a disgusting, knuckle-dragging troll, and you can't behave in polite society. You know, look, here's my criticism of American. They've changed their name, but it's American Public Square now. Is that it is civility from a liberal point of view, and sometimes just going in being a conservative, you've got half a ding right there on you. You've got to learn how to play their game, but just the idea that you've got fact checkers there and somebody's in charge of civility is such a kind of top-down, technocratic, we know best, stay in your lane. It's despite their effort, it's not conducive to open debate. But having said that, you know, the topics I've talked about are pre-K in Kansas City, the streetcar, the stadiums. They haven't lent themselves to raucous debate. Stuff like the trans issue or DEI, like those are issues where people get really heated.
But let me actually defend them, though, and say, you know, the fact that you're on the panel and I'm on the panel and they're inviting us to places that typically we don't get invited to, I don't care if they're going to ding me. If I'm just presenting my facts and my viewpoints, I don't much care what they think about it. They've invited me there for a reason, so I'm not going to tiptoe around things.
No, and I have always said, you know, certainly with the demise of Ruckus on KCPBS, that I think Kansas City needs more public discussion, more open forums about more issues. We tend to not, we don't have enough. So you're absolutely right. To the degree that they are doing that, and to the degree that they're inviting people who are right of center, they should be complimented. I just find the whole setup needlessly bureaucratic. People can behave themselves in an open forum without silly bells.
Well, I will say the audience did a very good job. I thought it was going to get a little rowdy last night, but they asked the audience not to clap, not to cheer, and not to jeer either, and no one jeered me. So that's a win.
I'll tell you one event we did years and years ago. I wasn't on the panel. My colleague Mike McShane was on, and it was about education. And he got fact-checked twice in the event. One of them made it to the televised event. He got fact-checked twice and was actually able to fact-check the fact-checkers because they had cited one study, and he goes, I know what that study is, but subsequent studies have found this and that. And he is such a storehouse of information on education, and he was able to access it immediately that it was really impressive. And it was funny to see the fact-checkers getting frustrated with his pushback because he just knows his material.
Yeah. Well, I got fact-checked twice last night. One I just played, and that was on income based on race and also fatherless homes.
I heard that. I missed my exit this morning driving in because I was listening to your getting dinged.
I made you miss your exit. That's great. I love that. That means it's good radio. And then I also got fact-checked when I said early in the conversation that race relations peaked during Barack Obama's first term and have subsequently went down over the last 10-plus years. Now, why is left up to interpretation and opinion, but they fact-checked me on that last night. I'll play the audio later this morning, but they admitted I was right. Gallup polling, which I knew, showed that race relations peaked in early 2010, 2011, 2012, and it's been downhill, sadly, for the last 10 years. So I'll take it. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
But they basically confirmed my fact-check. So that's a good thing.
So do you get undinged or they take back a ding?
No, but I got a lot of self-satisfaction out of it. So
but they didn't give me a third bell, but I do have 2 bells on my bookcase in the basement. And again, largely positive experiences. So good for you. I'm glad they're making use of you.
No, they were great. All right, let me talk about your piece, thehill.com. Patrick Tuohey is here with the Show Me Institute. What other cities can learn from Kansas City's failed progressive experiments?
Yeah.
And this is fare, free transit, free buses, and then the subsidized grocery stores, 2 things I mentioned with Harris Faulkner last week on Fox. So you write here that it offers a cautionary tale for cities nationwide. We know that New York City wants to do this with the new leader in the mayor's race. What can they learn? Which one do you want to hit first?
Look, they're both well-tread topics here. I think the gist of it, and the third one, by the way, was defund the police, which we tried a few years ago. You know, as conservatives, I can speak for myself. I look at what's going on in New York, and I'm ambivalent. On the one hand, I love the city. I don't want it to go back to the 70s. I don't want it to go back to kind of the crime and the lawlessness and the garbage. So I don't want to see the city move in that direction. On the other hand, I think to myself, look, maybe we need this. Maybe people need to be reminded every few years that these well-intended government policies don't work. They just don't work. And again, maybe people have forgotten. Maybe we need to see it again. I don't want to sacrifice New York. And so I thought, look, let me write about a market I know about Kansas City. We have, left of center leadership, and they have stepped in every pile of dog poo walking down the sidewalk that they can manage. Fare-free buses, all the research said before they engaged in this that it was a bad idea, yet they did it. It was predictable, the outcome, and I predicted it 10 years ago. And so now the city has to clean up after a bad idea that everyone should have seen coming. Grocery stores, subsidizing grocery stores. Kansas City likes to subsidize everything. The mayor has pointed that out. So what's one more subsidy? But it didn't work. And again, I wrote when they embarked on it, this isn't going to work. And tragically, not only was it just kind of a failed experiment, whoopsie, but everything is worse off, right? So that shopping center there on Linwood and Prospect is worse off. Mm-hmm. They've had more crime. The people that the program was supposed to help are worse off. And we're all kind of, we have less money as a result of these exorbitant subsidies. And so the problem with, you've heard the joke, I've mentioned it before. How do you tell when a liberal is dead? Well, the punchline is their heart stops bleeding. Nobody accuses liberals of not being well-intended. The problem is their outcomes aren't helpful. And so when we let people want to look at New York City and be afraid of these policies, and I wanted to say we've done them in Kansas City, each one of them have failed. We don't need to repeat this in larger markets. We know what the outcome is going to be.
With the buses in particular, that's getting a lot of attention, especially in a place like New York. And I can't imagine with how bad it's been for us with the buses here, right? Where you've got bus drivers packing heat now because they don't know who's coming on the bus. Could you imagine doing that in a place like New York with subways and buses? I mean, that's a mass transit town. We kind of have a half you-know-what bus service here. It's just totally different.
No, you're absolutely right. It is totally different. And certainly the density in New York City and just the size of the population is going to make their experience with it different than ours. And you can say, well, maybe in a larger market with a denser population and more people, you kind of fix some of those problems. But again, the problems we had in Kansas City was that if you go and talk to people who depend upon transit, who depend upon buses to get to work, to get to grocery stores, they will tell you, I want better service, I want cleaner buses. They don't complain about bus fare. That's not their complaint. When you get rid of bus fare, what happened in Kansas City is that people who really had nowhere to go just used buses as rolling shelters. So people who could get on, because why not, get out of the rain or get out of whatever you're sleeping under. You start menacing bus drivers, as you mentioned. You menace passengers, and then fewer people ride the bus because they're concerned about safety. And then you blow a hole in the budget. And so we had to divert federal COVID funds to cover the budget a hole that the KCATA was experiencing. And yeah, we come out of it a few years later. We're going to reinstitute fares, and nothing is better off. We've got fewer drivers, fewer routes, fewer people being served because we've engaged in this years-long experiment that was just awful. So yes, New York is going to have a different experience if they engage in this, but even looking at a smaller market, if you consider us a test case, it didn't work out. And we should have known this because it hasn't worked out elsewhere.
And one of the amazing stats that I like to use is that ridership of the buses in Kansas City is not where it was pre-COVID. I mean, we're 6 years later, and we have not come close to 2019 ridership numbers, which you would think, it's free. Everyone loves free. No, they like quality at a fair price.
Yes, right? Yes, that's right. And again, the surveys told us fair is not what people complain about. But you get, and I don't I don't like talking in terms that are ideological, but you get these, Robbie McKinnon was ahead of KCATA at the time, a position he had no business holding. He was not qualified.
That's a theme for that business, for that job, too, it seems like. Because now it's Frank White's kid running the show.
Yes, and I don't know about his background. I've lauded him in the past because he has tried to reinstitute fairs, and, they've had protesters, and it's been very difficult. But for a long time, this is where he's wanted to be. So I give him credit for that. But in the past, it's been these progressives who aren't concerned about the research, who just say, hey, let's give it a shot and let's see what happens. Like, no, that you can't do that with public policy. You've got to make decisions wisely. You've got to look at the data because the risk is not just, oopsie. The risk is you've destroyed a vital service in Kansas City and blown a hole in the budget.
Patrick Tuohey of the Show Me Institute on KCMO Talk Radio. This is a great piece. We'll share it on our social media pages on thehill.com, what other cities can learn from Kansas City's failed progressive experiments. Well done, my man. Always appreciate you.
Oh, thank you so much. And stay in Kansas City, Pete.
I'm good, man. Everything's great. Life is great. Thank you for that. Patrick Tuohey on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM.